Hey guys, it's Christian, your Vancouver Realtor, and the topic for today's video is BC Stratas 101. And for this video, what I want to do is share with you a lot of the questions that I'm asked by my buyer clients that are moving into a strata for the very first time. And of course, people have a lot of questions and you don't know how it works. And so what I've done here is we've put together a whole list of questions, and I think it's going to help give you the answers that you need here. So let's start off with the very first question, and that is, are property managers and strata managers the same thing? No, they are not. Property managers will manage a rental property for a owner, usually who lives outside the city or outside the country. Maybe the owner lives in California and he doesn't want to get phone calls at 3 o'clock in the morning when the plumbing is all broken. The toilet is plugged up. That phone call goes to the property manager, and so that's what a property manager is. They would find a tenant, they rent out the suite, and away you go. A strata manager is the person that the strata council, and by the way, council is just like, in the government you have a cabinet. It's usually about 20 members of parliament, and then the other 140 sit in the back bench. Well, strata council, same thing. You got about 5 people from the 200 members in the building, and they make these executive decisions. They choose the strata management company and manager. And the manager would deal with things like if the elevator breaks down, they will call the elevator servicing company to have that fixed. If somebody's breaking the rules and needs to be warned or fined, that's the strata manager. Strata manager will run the annual general meetings and so on. So that's what the difference is. Second question. What are strata fees? So just so you know, strata fees, or maintenance fees sometimes called, is simply what you're paying the strata every month. Typically 2 bedrooms right now, as of October 2021, are going to run between about $450 to $600. 1 bedrooms, about $300 to $500. Strata fees have gone up, of course. But those strata fees will pay for your operating expenses, things like the gas, electricity, landscaping, the management company. All of that is what your strata fees are paying for. Question here would be, how are the strata fees calculated? Well, they're basically, if I give you a very simple example, strata fees are calculated by what percentage of the living space you own. So let's say, for example, you have a building, 100 units, you own one of the units, you own one of the bigger units, maybe you own about 1.5% of all the living space. So you would be responsible for about 1.5% of all the operating expenses. That's really as simple as I could explain to you how they're calculated. Okay? How do I pay my strata fees? Well, very simple. What you would do when you're moving into the building, you will get a one-pager from the strata company. You'll fill that out, your name, phone number, email, and you'll also get a void check from the bank. You will scan that to the property management company, and then you just set it and forget it. You'll be put on automatic monthly payments. That's what I do. That's what I recommend everybody do. And so you can do that as well. Saves you the time. Question, what happens if I don't pay my strata fees? Definitely you do not want to do this. You always want to be paying your strata fees. Strata, by the way, is ranked above your mortgage. So what that means is if you were to stop paying your strata fees, the strata company can place a lien on your property. And if it goes long enough, they can actually foreclose on you, force you to sell your property. It is very rare. I probably see that 1 in 500, maybe 1 in 1,000. Very rarely. I mean, I look at hundreds of listings a week, and I probably see that once a year. So it is a very rare situation. Normally you see that when someone has lost their job and just can't make payments on their mortgage. Well, then they stop paying their strata fees as well. But it's very rare in the lower mainland from what I've seen. How come strata fees are always going up? This is a great question. And guys, I really wish they didn't always go up, but they do, don't they? Now, they're really going up for a number of reasons. Think about the price of electricity or natural gas. It was about 18 months ago. It was sort of the winter of 2019, 2020. Natural gas prices were going up. Well, guess what? Those fees, those costs get passed to the owners, and they get passed on to our maintenance fees. So that's why our maintenance fees are going up. But your strata's got a landscaper, and the landscaping company might be on contract for $20,000 a year, come out once a week every Friday to trim the hedges, cut the grass, plant the tulips. All of that is the following year, they're probably going to raise those landscaping fees by, $2,000, $3,000. So services, costs like that are always going up. And of course, the management company will probably be charging you more as well. Normally, the management fees I find go up about 2 to 3% a year. Some strata managements and councils are really good. They have a tight budget, and you might see them have same budget, up 2%. Same, up 3%, same. And so you kind of see that pattern if they're really good at running their finances. Otherwise, you may see them jump 3%, 5%, 3%, and if that's a bit high. I've noticed that with different strata companies. You have to really watch that. My personal experience, is that for every good strata company, you have 5 terrible ones. And I really mean that. It's a part of the industry that really needs to get shaken up. There's just very poor customer service from a lot of strata management companies. I'm not going to name the bad ones, but I can tell you a couple of really good ones where they have really good service. You call them, you can get a live human being on the phone, and you could always share this with your strata council. The first one is Tribe Management. They run one of the buildings I own in. Fantastic company. I think the best personal service I've received. Second one is Rancho Management. They've been around a long time. I find they're really good too. If you've got questions, you can always get a human being on the phone. The rest of these strata management companies, folks, they are just awful, I have to say, and it's just too bad. I really wish they were better than this. Okay, let's move along. Question. Can a strata corporation operate without a CRF? What's a CRF? CRF is a contingency reserve fund. I call it the piggy bank. And so does a strata have to have this big savings account? Yes, they do. They must have it, and they have to have about 25% of last year's operating budget. Simple math, let's say the operating budget was $100,000 last year. That means they've got to have $25,000 in their savings account. Okay, so that has to be what they have in savings. Okay. Other questions. How do I get a copy of the bylaws, of the rules? Very simple. Before you're even buying into the building, you should be getting a copy of this from your realtor. Your bylaws and rules are very important. Typically, the 2 most important bylaws you want to be looking for are rental restrictions and pet bylaws. These are the 2 bylaws that are most going to affect the value of your unit. For example, let's say you had a building, no rental restrictions, and then next month your strata decided to pass a bylaw that said no more than 10 units allowed to rent in this 100-unit condo. That's going to throw a real curveball at you, because I would say the value of your place drops 5 to 10%. Just with that bylaw change. So I always recommend my clients, if this is coming up for discussion at the AGM, get to that AGM, stand up, make your voice heard. You do not want a rental restriction in the bylaws. It's really going to hurt your value. The other one is pets. People, if living at home, they feel lonely, they want to have a cat, they want to have a dog. Very, very important that people be able to have some type of pet anyway. And so you would want to see what those bylaws are regarding pets. When it comes to dogs, sometimes stratas will have weight restrictions. Can be different on every strata. I've seen as little as 20 pounds. I've seen 35 pounds, 45 pounds. Restrictions on the type of dogs you can have. Usually it's aggressive breeds like pit bulls or Rottweilers. So you really, really have to read those bylaws. Very important. There's other things. I've worked with clients who were really avid cyclists, and they own like these $20,000 Tour de France bikes, the kind you can lift up with your pinky. And so they want to take their bicycle and store it in their unit or on the balcony, because they're afraid of leaving it in a storage locker where it could potentially get stolen. And a lot of stratas have bylaws that do not let you take the bicycle up through the elevator. So if you plan on getting a bicycle like that 3 years from now, you would really have to know that for yourself and study those bylaws. Okay, really, I can't stress that enough. All right, moving along. Do I need permission to renovate my strata? Meaning your condo or your townhouse. By the way, townhouses tend to be a lot more lax, easygoing about renovations because it's you living above you and you living below you if you have a 3-level townhouse. Condos going to be a lot more strict. If it's a condo that's a wood frame building, could be very strict. They may even have rules that say you need to have 60% of the entire floor area covered in carpets or rugs. Because if the lady upstairs is wearing high heels, you might hear it downstairs. So, do you need permission? Yes, you do. If you're changing the floors, often the strata now asks you to take a photograph of the underlay. The underlay is that soft foam that you're putting underneath your flooring. They'll want to see a copy of the receipt of that and make sure that it meets the acoustic requirements of the strata. Folks, stratas are very strict on this. Make sure you do that. Or make sure your contractor takes a photograph of it and sends it to you. You keep a copy of the receipt, keep a copy of a photo of the underlay, the acoustic requirements, so that you can present that if you're required. You also need to fill out a form from the strata that says that what type of renovation you're doing. Heavier renovations might be things like opening up walls. That can get more complex. Of course, you need to get the okay from the strata there because there could be pipes and electrical inside those walls that have to be removed or moved. And the strata may even ask you to go to City Hall and get permits for that kind of stuff. Getting permits can take a little bit of time, so you really want to plan your renovation out. So it takes some forethought, obviously. So yeah, you need to get the okay. Question, what if I want to alter the outside, the yard, or something like that? Be very careful with that. If you're in a townhouse complex and your fence is really old and you want to replace it or paint it, or you've got just pavers outside in your backyard and you want to move those, talk to the strata. Get the green light first, because if it's common property, it belongs to the strata and you can't touch that. Other question is sometimes I get asked is for the condo, if we're looking at enclosing the condo or putting some overhangs on the balcony. No, you can't do that. You can't drill into the hole, into the outside wall of your condo building. It can affect the condo's insurance and render it null and void. So you definitely don't want to do that 99% of the time. If it's a townhouse complex, there may be some leeway. Talk to them and see what they'll let you do. Okay, with your grass or with the fence or the pavers in the backyard. All right, can the Strata Corporation prevent me from having pets? Well, no. If you've moved in and you live there and they pass a bylaw that says from this day forward, no more pets are allowed, you will be what's called grandfathered in. And so you can keep your pet until obviously your pet passes away. And at that point, that's it. Game over. Or I've seen the bylaw written another way, which is that you as the owner can keep a pet. If your pet were to pass away, you could still then replace your pet that passed away. But that depends on how the bylaw is written. So you'd really have to look into that. Okay, and that's what we call grandfathering in the bylaw. It applies to you because you're there, but the new owners, it doesn't apply to them anymore, and they're not allowed to have any pets inside. Who is responsible for repairs in my unit? You are. So if something goes wrong with the plumbing, you've got to call the plumber and get that fixed. Or if it's the dishwasher, the refrigerator, you got to call in the handyman. It's not the Strata. What are the requirements if I want to rent out my unit? It's really pretty straightforward. You would get what's called a Form K, and it's just going to be a couple of pages. Just fill in the tenant's name, and you're going to submit that to the Strata. And the second thing you're going to do is you're going to give the tenant a copy of the bylaws, the rules. You're going to make sure they sign off that they've received that. And that's pretty much all you really need to do. And you can rent out your unit. Obviously, you have to make sure that you have rentals allowed in your building. This is not going to work if you have restrictions. Whenever there's restrictions, I just say, you know what? It basically means you're not allowed to rent. Because nine times out of 10, if there are any kinds of restrictions, for example, you're only allowed to rent out 25 units in this building, I find they're all taken. All those spots. What you need to do is get on the waiting list. If you plan to rent it out and you know those spots are taken, get on the waiting list 6 months, even a year early, because some of those waiting lists can be 2 to 3 years long. You would be surprised. And then when your tenant moves out, you go to the bottom of the list. So not ideal, obviously, if it's a rentals restricted building. Next question. If I have a complaint, who do I report it to? Well, you would report it to the Strata property manager. They liaise with the owners. Common complaints are things like noise, loud music, boom, 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 or somebody is having parties. Another type of complaint would be smoking on the balcony, whether it's marijuana or who knows what they're smoking. In Vancouver. So if that's the case, you've got to report that to the property management company. Put as much detail in your email as possible. Put the time, the date, etc. Send that off. If you've got a photo, you want to take a photo as well. I would say those are normal. Sometimes people storing stuff in your storage locker or parking in your parking spot. Same thing. Just send an email or make a phone call. Okay, so that's how you would, who and how you report a complaint. All right, moving along. So is there a Strata police? That was a question I came across once. No, there is no Strata police. There is a BC resolutions tribunal that you can go to resolve these kind of disputes, but there's no police at all. Although there are some very vigilant members of the Strata. For example, the building I live in, we have someone who will walk the parkade every day at 11 o'clock at night, and she's looking for any suspicious behavior, any cars that haven't been there before. So different Stratas have different ways of policing things in the complex. Moving along. What if you disagree with the bylaws? This is a tough one. If you don't like the bylaws in your building, the best thing you can do is go to the annual general meeting, AGM, and voice your concerns. Typically, it has to do with rentals and pets. If there's some talk about restricting rentals, I tell my clients, go to those meetings and make sure you do not get a restriction. A restriction on the numbers is very different than on the time period. Nobody wants their condo to turn into a hotel, so you want a 1 month minimum, and so you don't want to have a Airbnb situation on your floor, but you definitely so you want a 1 month minimum time period, maybe 3 months. 6 months is also quite common, but you do not want to restrict the rentals. That's the best place to voice your concern. You can sometimes talk to other owners if you're concerned, maybe get their feedback as well. I really think it's important that you talk to people about this. Talk to the Strata Council as well. If there's bylaws that you want to change, the way you do that is by influencing other people's thinking about this. You especially want to influence the people on the strata and hopefully get an opportunity to talk about that at the AGM and have a situation where you could bring it to a vote. This really helps if you are a likable person and you have a likable winning personality. And if you, just a big pro tip there, for help on that, there's a great book called How to Win Friends and Influence People. Pick up a copy of that, read that twice. It's an incredible book, and it will make you a more influential person. Now, let's move along. A couple more questions here, and we'll wrap it up. And I'm actually looking over the questions, and you know what? I think we're going to probably call it a day over here. We've probably done pretty good. And maybe the last one. How do I obtain a copy of the minutes? How do I get a copy of the Form B? When you are buying the very first time, your realtor, your buyer's agent, I would get a copy of those minutes, and I would share those with you so you can read them for yourself as well. You got to do your homework when you're buying into any kind of building. The strata minutes are like a diary. Tells us the types of issues that the building has, but also the types of issues the owners have with each other. We want to know about this. Are there noisy neighbors? Are there a lot of Airbnbs? Is that going to bother you? Well, we want to read those minutes and we want to find out. That's how we will learn. Okay, I hope this has been of value to you. If you got any questions, comments, leave those below. Give us a subscribe or a thumbs up if you enjoy the stories, the content. And we will see you next time. And thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye now.